Very good evening to everyone and a happy new year 2023. I welcome all of you to the first episode of Eclectica in 23, but it is the episode number 45. Well, here are some few questions that you should think upon, or I am sure that you have been thinking about it. That is, what is the reason that we develop chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, cancer, in spite of being having so many options in the healthcare system? Still today we do not have just one point solution to actually cure these diseases. So these are certain areas which actually hovers any of our minds. It may not be that we belong from a healthcare profession background. It is a question which is pertinent. Well, I think that now we have someone in this show who can give you a guided path and also probably a very good solution and answers to these kind of questions. So today my guest is Mr. Sushant Kumar, the founder and CEO of Genfitletics, and I will just pull in my guest very soon here. Very good evening, Sushant. Thank you so much for accepting my invite for this show and coming on this show and spending your time with us.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. It's pleasure to reconnect with you after the last panel discussion, and I really feel starting this new year, and it is good to because health issues and diseases are are being increasing day by day, year and year, and we have seen people suffering from number of chronic health conditions, and we really don't have much information or interventions to actually cure them. So probably we have been just focused on managing them. So I think this is a good start to actually let people think that how actually these diseases develop, right?
Right.
And what kind of questions we should ask to our healthcare practitioners, right? When we are actually going for some sort of solution for our health worries, right? So thanks for this, and probably thanks for giving me this opportunity to share something really important, right? And I'm really passionate about helping others in terms of improving their lives or improving their health, right? And I think this is a good platform for me to share my knowledge and education with everyone else.
Thank you, Sushant. And to all my audience, today's interaction will be very, very interesting as we will be covering a lot of areas relating to these aspects where these are common questions which we have been facing. And we will also see what the recent industry offers to us in terms of solutions. And as I said, that Sushant will guide us in a perfect path where you need to understand that what to choose and what not to choose, right, Sushant? And then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Sushant has a very diverse background, but I think it will be very nice to hear his inspiring story right from him since we have him here today. So, Sushant, it will be very nice if you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey, particularly with Genfitletics, and what made you, give birth to Genfitletics.
Okay, sure. So I come from a very different background, unlike a lot of healthcare and biotech professionals. So I don't bring a formal so-called scientist degree or a biotechnology degree, right? So I spent around 20 years, more than 2 decades in different sectors, right from agriculture to automotive to financial services to management consulting, mostly in the function of strategy and corporate finance. And the way I've helped a lot of my previous employers raised millions of dollars for funding their projects, be it working capital, be it new projects. Been part of a lot of M&A and private equity deals as well. you know. Uh, Acquisitions, joint ventures, assignments, right? So a lot of things what I've done on a growth strategy part. But so ideally it was uh, ideally my choice would have been take up a CXO role in any fintech
Right.
company, right? But something happened in my personal life which made me rethink how this healthcare system works, right? So essentially right from early 2000 till recently, I have lost, or probably have my family members who are very close to me have been suffering from number of chronic diseases. Like I lost my grandmother to cardiovascular disease. My mother had a narrow death escape. She was suffering from type 2 diabetes, and she had cardiac arrest. And and it was, I'll share a bit of story. So probably, it was really surprised and shocked too, because when she had this heart attack and we went to doctors and hospitals, so they had neglected saying that it's acidity. Yeah. So essentially two hospitals said that, and then when we were to third hospital, they actually confirm that it's in cardiac arrest, right? And again, then lost my maternal uncle to liver disease, and my father has been suffering from a very serious cancer. So essentially, this all made me think that why such a huge healthcare system, we have so much technology, so much doctors,
Mm,
so much education around it, medicines, drugs. So why we are not able to solve them, right? So essentially, finding the answer to these questions, probably I started reading a lot of papers, research paper around health, around entire how human body works. And then something popped in. I think I read almost 500 plus papers on microbiome, right? And
okay.
which made me realize that probably we have been asking the wrong questions, right? So essentially, uh, if you see, our body has around what 37 trillion cells, right? And that's a fact, right? So and a lot of people may not know, right? For everyone to understand
Mm,
that 57% of these cells are made by microbes, right?
mm,
So essentially, 20 trillion cells comes from the microbes living inside our body at various parts, right? Right from mouth to small intestine to large intestine to skin to vagina, everywhere,
everywhere.
right? And even come to genes. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's if I have diabetes, I have hypertension, or I have joint pains, right? Food intolerances, right?"
Correct.
People say, "Oh, it is." I have bad genes, right? So
Mm,
so there's nothing called a bad genes, because so our human body has around 25,000 genes that you get from our mom and dad, right? And microbes living inside our body expresses around 25 million genes, right?
right.
If you see by genes expression perspective, we are only from 0.1% to 1% human beings,
Mm,
right?
true. True.
So essentially, we may say that 5% of people may have genetic predisposition to certain diseases, but
Mm,
your genes cannot define 95% of chronic diseases, right? So essentially, when I started studying them, I found that these microbes does a lot of things inside our body, right from digesting food, giving us nutrients, stabilizing our blood sugar level, managing our weight, how do we extract energy, uh, how to control hormone balances, neutralizing pathogens, even the immune system, right? So 70% of immune cells is on our gut lining, right? So most of the bacteria living in our gut probably you know communicate with the immune cells like you and me are communicating. They communicate in the same way, right? the
true.
the, the mode is different because there are a lot of biochemical signals which happen inside the body. Similarly, your microbes living in a large intestine talk to your brain, right? So
Mm,
essentially, if you see, very simple for everyone who, if someone is going for an interview, he or she has a butterflies in the stomach, right? So it clearly connects your brain with your gut through vagus nerve, right? So essentially, people who have digestive issues may have mental health disorders, or people who are stressed, they may have bloating, constipation, digestive issues, right? So it's a very deep rooted science, and probably we have not trying to address that, right? So
right.
essentially, these microbes does everything. Whatever food we are eating, we are actually feeding them, right? And when we eat the food, right? So right from the time we eat, right, in mouth we have, in saliva we have oral microbiome, right? You know it because you come from a dentist genetic background, right? So essentially, these microbes actually pre-digest the food and convert into some byproduct. They tell their friends in your gut, probably, that I have encountered something. For instance, if you're eating, if you've eaten some chocolate or something sweet, right? So they'll tell, went out something, sweet, please tell pancreas to release insulin, right? So a lot of bacteria, they instruct pancreas how much of it the insulin has to be released, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
essentially, yeah. So when we talk of, so probably I'll share about diabetes a bit later, but when we talk of insulin release or regulating our satiety, right?
Mm,
Ghrelin in all these hormones, right? So essentially, your microbes controls their expression, right? So right. So when they start eating, digesting the food we eat, they start releasing some byproducts, what we call as metabolites, right? And
correct.
these metabolites are nothing but bacterial poop, right? And depending upon which microbes are there and what you are eating, right, they can either give you nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin D, iron, magnesium, and all these vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, or they start releasing toxins, right? And when they start releasing toxins, they tell immune system, oh, I have released something bad, please go and take care of it, right? And then immune cells get into action, they start doing inflammation because that's to
Right.
kill these pathogens. So essentially, when they are doing inflammation, they hijack a lot of energy which is coming for your cells, right, for you to function. That's why when you have digestive issues, you have inflammation, you have headache, you have type 2 diabetes, you have blood pressure, you will feel low on energy and fatigue because your the energy coming from food is actually being hijacked by these immune
Mm,
cells, and they start, so they start killing these pathogens. And every time this inflammation happens regularly because we're eating something bad, or probably we are taking a lot of antibiotics, so it kills your microbiome, it creates an imbalance, and they start, every time they start doing inflammation, then we have this what we call as low grade chronic inflammation, right? And all these symptoms, be it bloating, constipation, headache, low on energy, is all the outcome of inflammation, right? So
okay.
all these symptoms are clubbed together and told disease. It means this plus our body is not at ease, right? So essentially, a lot of these things, every single chronic disease is linked with the activity of a microbiome, right? So,
Okay.
so, so if you are taking wrong foods, if you are taking antibiotics, we now, I recently saw this very interesting movie which is coming, on microbiome. So, it claims that, the microbiome is getting disappearing, they're getting extinct, right?
Mm, mm,
Because of a lot of overuse of antibiotics prescribed by a healthcare system, right?
right.
And these antibiotics kill the bacteria, and we are eating so much that these bacteria have become antibiotic resistant, right?
Resistant. Yes.
So this
Mm,
is another, so the next biggest crisis, right, or epidemic after chronic disease is going to be antibiotic resistant, right? So
yeah.
so we would start developing, infections and a lot of other harmful diseases, and antibiotics will not work because the bacteria have become resistant to these medicines. So essentially, all these things are not a way to solve chronic diseases. These are just a way to manage our diseases. So,
Right.
so that's why it is important to understand these activities of these microbes, and there will be a lot of research going on in and around in India and outside India, that how can we use them to actually make them work for our body.
Mm,
So
right.
that's what made me actually move from a finance leader to become a biotech entrepreneur to set up Gene Freeletics, and over last 3.5 years, we have built two very amazing products which actually understand what these microbes are doing, decode their activities, analyze their activities, and probably tell them what we should be doing to actually regulate our body, right? So
All right, all right. I think that's a very inspiring source from where you got your inspiration, and it's you the way you speak now about microbes and biology. It doesn't seem at all that you do not belong from a finance. I mean, you belong from a finance background, or you do not belong from a formal education in biology or biotechnology. That's something, I think it's a very good point of motivation for everybody, because I think when you have a passion for something, and when you really, as you say, that you like to help people to solve their chronic disease problem or any such kind of thing, so I think that is where we see the reflection of passion. And I am sure that Genfitlectics is just a byproduct of your passion, and we will learn more about this in our conversation. Well, so I think you have covered a lot of basic ideas and certain things which I also just learned from you right this moment. Yes, being from the healthcare professional fraternity as well myself, so yeah, I think I also have similar experiences as you shared, what you faced with your mom being misdiagnosed or not being diagnosed correctly. So I think this story is common in every family, one way or the other. So we have such a healthcare system, as you rightly said, and we have, I think, the best of doctors and healthcare professionals, and also now we have one of the best class of technology to back kind of clinical studies that we say, or rather clinical research. A lot is happening, but still the question remains that why we are not able to solve these chronic diseases. So what do you think, Sushant? What is your take on this question?
Okay, so let us go back, and probably revisit when
Mm-hmm.
the healthcare system was developed, right? And uh, why it was developed, right? So if you go back, let us deep dive into our ancestors were nomads, right? So we never had a permanent settlement. We used to move from one place to other, right? And there was
Right.
less contact with each other, so there was no exchange of
Mhm.
breath. So essentially, these chronic diseases were non-existent, right? And
Mm.
then came few things like agriculture revolution. So then we started, our crop cycles became more predictable. We started having a
Right.
permanent settlement. We started having domesticated cattle, and we started living in different places, and the group of people started living, and then we started exchanging a lot of bacteria and pathogens, right?
Mm.
Or we started developing infections, right? And then again privatization happened, and people started moving from rural areas to urban areas, and it started exploding so much that a lot of areas which were meant for agriculture were actually transformed into cities, right? And then we never had a lot of agriculture produce, right? And which were replaced by processed foods, and all these ready to eat, and these foods which were
Correct.
full of salt and sugar, and concentrates and preservatives which were bad for our health, right? So essentially we started having infections, and then scientists laid a theory what we call as germ theory, right? So okay, these bacteria, we are having infections, they are bad. We don't know, they are good people, they are bad people, both. We don't know who are good, who are bad, right? We don't have technology, so let's kill them, right? And that's how antibiotics was developed, right? So
Correct.
we started having antibiotics, and we getting rid of infections, right? So we were happy we got rid of infections, but
Mm.
we started developing chronic diseases, right? So obesity and type 2 diabetes were actually not there, right? And even if some people had, it was like death sentence, so you could never cure from that, right?
Mm.
So we started developing this disease. So the starting point of development of chronic disease was getting rid of infections, right? So we thought, we have to be hygienic. We have to be, we started using soaps and antibiotics and all these lotions,
Detergents and stuff. Yeah.
which start killing bacteria, right? And we never know who are good, who are bad, so we kill them all, right? And that's why
Correct.
there was, very low bacterial diversity, right? And
Mm.
so most of these bacteria around, our body has 100 trillion bacteria, 40 trillion lives in our gut, right? In our large intestine, right? So 40% live there, and so essentially, when we are killing them, our food is not getting digested. We are not getting the vitamins and nutrients and minerals, and we are having multiple issues. Where then we are going for supplements and all this. So essentially, you know, the root cause of everything, as I mentioned earlier, was chronic inflammation. When we are killing them, so there's an imbalance in your gut, right, in your microbiome, and some bad folks would actually dominate the ecosystem. And
Right.
when you start feeding them, they will start, you know, dominating more, and they'll start, you know, releasing bad things, and your immune system start doing inflammation. And you know, this inflammation lead to various symptoms, which is again disease, right? So essentially, disease is nothing but our body is in imbalance because our microbiome is imbalanced, right? So that's how we started developing these diseases. Now when we talk of doctors, okay, we have doctors. If so, what happens is, suppose if you have cough and cold, when you go to a doctor, he will say, okay, you have this, take this medicine, you know. So everything, if you have headache, take this medicine. If you have migraine, take this medicine. If you have an autoimmune disorder, they will start giving you immune suppressants, right? So we had a discussion last, I think, last year in December, we had a discussion on alopecia also, right? So alopecia again is a hair loss, right? So there are a lot
Yes.
of companies saying we'll give you probiotics and prebiotics to regrow your hair, but hair loss or alopecia is nothing but an autoimmune disorder, right? So
Correct.
so so most of the doctors would start giving you immune suppressants, and it will suppress your immune system, and then you will have some other symptoms, and then again they'll give you some other medicines. So essentially, doctors are never taught nutrition in medical school. You go to any MBBS school, they are never taught that, okay, using nutrition to cure diseases, right? So,
Mm.
so essentially, they only know one thing. Okay, I have this symptom. I have to suppress this symptom. I have to give this medicine, right? Or I have to give fat diets. I have to give no, fat diet recommendations, right? So
Correct.
essentially, this imbalance our microbiome, and we started developing more symptoms, right? So every time
Mm.
you go to the doctor, they are going to give you medicines, right? And it will further imbalance, as I mentioned, antibiotics. They will further imbalance. It will further have some other symptoms. So one
Correct.
suppressing one symptom will create three more symptoms. Again, suppressing those three, it will create nine more, right? So
Kind of a
this
vicious cycle. Yeah.
vicious cycle goes on and on, right? So essentially, so we are not blaming doctors, or we are not against doctors. So there are doctors who are doing good stuff. The 99% doctors are really good, right? So they really want to help. But the problem is, right, the way they have been taught during medical schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are not taught nutrition. So they know, okay, I have to marry symptoms with standard interventions, be it
Yeah.
medicines, be it ointments, be it lotion, be it prebiotics, probiotics, or you know, some sort of dietary recommendations which may or may not work, right? So essentially, what is lacking is understanding a unique biology of an individual, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
food which is healthy for me, you may not be healthy for me, right?
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
essentially, very simple. Everyone should understand this. You know, if you are sitting with your family on the same table for the dinner, right? You
Huh.
will eat the same food, but your bodies will respond to it differently, right? For
Absolutely.
instance, I may have digestive issues, my son may not have digestive issues, right? Or my
Correct.
wife may not have digestive, my mother may not have, right? So essentially,
Mm.
everybody processes the food differently, right? So this is a very clear example of, you know, there's nothing called a standard healthy diet, you know. So you can't go, if someone, you know, tells you, okay, based on your blood work, you know, you eat this, you eat that, is not going to work, you know. So
Mm.
essentially, we need to understand unique biology, and this unique biology should be available to the doctors so that they can actually bring precision in their treatment.
Mm.
So if you see, most of the diseases, if you go, doctor will say, oh, it is genetic, or I don't know, I can only give you medicines to cure it, right? So it happened in my case, my father's case, because when he was diagnosed with cancer, we checked with the doctor, okay, what is the reason why? It can be anything. It can be genetic, it can be stress, it can be blah blah blah. What we can do is, we know the tumor, we can give chemotherapy and suppress the tumor, right? So that's I'm telling you some real examples. This is a real thing which has happened.
Absolutely.
So again, you know, we really need to, first thing is, we need to start asking the right questions.
True.
What we ask is, right, what is, okay, I have the symptom, what should I do, right? That's an important question, right?
Mm.
So if you have headache or low on energy, you'll go to a doctor. They'll say, okay, let's get your ECG and X-ray done, right? So probably, you know, let's see, you know, what we can give you, this medicine, that medicine, you know, so we can manage these symptoms, right? But the question we should be asking is, why and how we develop these diseases, right? Because ultimately, the thing is, we have technologies, we have doctors, then still we are, you know, developing these diseases? So essentially, that's the question we should ask if you go to a doctor next time. Oh, I have headache. Why I have headache? Or I have, suppose, so a customer of ours came. She had low hemoglobin, right?
Hmm.
Right, and that was the reason. So doctor told her it's iron deficient. Right? To start taking iron tablets. So the question is, they're saying, okay, you have this, you do this, right? So point is, first question is why I have iron deficiency, right? That is the first. So there can be multiple reasons. So
Correct.
it can be yeast overgrowth. It can be digestive issues because you're not able to digest the nutrients properly, or you don't have the right kind of bacteria to digest, or there are parasites, or can be number of reasons why you have, anemia or low hemoglobin. Right? So essentially, if we have this, so probably if your blood work shows, you have an high HbA1c, why? These are the questions you should ask. Right? So so
Correct.
it, right? So first starting point always should be to ask the right questions. Why and how I am developing these diseases, not what I need to do to make
Yeah, I
myself.
think to go back and find out the root cause rather than just
Yeah.
focusing on the I would say phenotypic expression or
Yeah.
the symptoms that we are
Yeah.
seeing. So Sushant, in this context, nowadays we hear a lot about DNA testing, or and the routine blood tests that are prevalent for I think everything that we have a problem, we have a blood test for that. So, what do you think about DNA testing or genetic testing as such in a general way? I'm asking you, and the routine blood works or the routine blood tests that we do. What is your point of view in this?
Let me take it, separately. So let's talk of DNA testing first, right?
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
so, so DNA testing is a basis of genomics, what we call as genomics testing, and it's a really beautiful way to understand our body.
Mm.
Understand what is our genetic makeup. What kind of characteristics we have. What is our hereditary. Or probably how do we where do we come from, and probably most of these, we 25,000 genes our body has, which we get from our parents, right? So
Mhm.
essentially, but again, so DNA testing can tell us genetic predisposition to certain diseases, right?
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
right? uh, but it's only 5% of total disease ecosystem what we are seeing right now, right?
Okay.
So essentially, uh, there may be situations that you may have some sort of rare autoimmune disorder which can be passed on from your mother or from your father, or maybe
Mm.
from your ancestors, or from your grandparents. But a lot of people think that, oh, my mother had type 2 diabetes, or my father had type 2 diabetes, I also have. Or probably in my family a lot of people were obese, so I will also be obese, right?
Mm.
So let me give you a very simple example, right? So FTO gene, which is again an obesity gene, right? So FTO
Yes.
gene is, people think, okay, I have FTO gene now, I will, it's because of gene I will become fat, right? So
Correct.
I also have an FTO gene, but I'm not fat, right? So essentially, your genes doesn't change from the time you're born to the time you die. It remains the same, right? And every
True.
time you go for the DNA testing, it will show the same information because your
Correct.
DNA doesn't change, right? That's why
Yeah,
DNA does
doesn't
not change, right? So it can help you decode, you know, rare uh, genetic diseases, right?
change. Right.
But when it comes to, chronic disease, it is not genes but genes expression, right?
Mm.
Essentially, even within the genes, right?
Mm.
5,000 genes comes from human being, and 20 million comes from microbes, right?
Microbes.
So if you're going for a human DNA testing, it is not going to give you a complete functional picture of your body, right? Right. So it can address 5% of the, 5 to 7% of the genetic diseases, right? Right. But it doesn't tell you your health right now, right? So essentially, if you, it's a very classic example. If you have lactose intolerance or gluten intolerance, doctor will say stop eating milk, stop eating gluten, right? Oh,
Yes.
it is because of your genes, right? So think over it. When you were a child going to school, you used to drink 2 times milk 2 times a day. You never
That-
had digestive issues or headache, right? Now what has changed in your genes? Your genes doesn't change. So how genes will be responsible for your food intolerances, right? So essentially
Exactly.
that, you need, and then we have these you know these food intolerance tests, right? So peanut
Mm,
allergy, egg allergy, gluten, lactose, and all these allergies, right? And intolerances, right? So
mm.
so test will tell you, okay, you have these allergy, that allergy, right? Stop eating them, okay? But questions again here should be, okay, I stop it. First thing is why I have these, right? When
Right.
can I use these foods again into my diet? Because when you're not eating these foods, you're got not getting nutrients, right? And if
Absolutely.
you have
Absolutely.
vitamin mineral deficiency, then you'll get to some supplements which may or may not work, right? So
True.
essentially, even on supplements, I'll probably talk about a bit later. But the point here is that DNA testing is a half-baked cake, right? It can be a good sign to understand our genetic predisposition to certain diseases, but it
Certain diseases.
cannot predict entire
Mm.
health, right? So,
Right.
so probably even if you want to go for a DNA testing, probably I would recommend go for a DNA whole DNA where you sequence your human and microbial DNA both,
Both. Mm.
right?
Mm.
But again, it
True.
will not give you the clear picture, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Correct. So, so in this context, like we see that lot of health tech, health tech startups are coming up nowadays, and they are also thriving. So, are the current set of healthcare startups who really solving the healthcare problems, or is it like just another way to manage our symptoms?
okay, so most of the startups, they rely on two things here, right? One is your standard of care blood works, your
Correct.
standard diagnostic test, right? Other is a newly evolved concept of CGM, what is continuous glucose monitoring machines, right?
Continuous glucose monitoring
So
machines.
essentially, now let's talk about diagnostic test first, right? So
Mm.
so essentially, what does our diagnostic test tell us? Oh, they tell us, something is wrong, right?
Something is wrong. Yes, that's
Yeah,
a range.
right?
It's never a one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yes.
And even go to basic fundamentals. So I'm telling you basic fundamentals, right? So we will say, okay, I want to get my test done from ABC lab because it is NABL accredited, or it is registered, or authorized, or this is it's high credibility because it is accredited with a particular association or particular batch. So for instance, in diagnostic tests is basically NABL accredited, right? So NABL refers to the usage of machines and your process of collecting samples, right? So
Correct.
essentially, the inferences or the results which come from those tests are
Hmm.
not clinically validated, or not analytically validated, right? So as a result, the standard deviation of these reports
Hmm.
or these results vary from 50% to 75%. It means that if you go to three different labs, you will have three different test results. Which one to rely on, right? And another
Right.
important thing here is that from the time you take the sample to the
Hmm.
time it is processed, there are more than 150 steps, right? The
Correct.
way the sample is collected, the way it is stored, the way it is processed, right?
Hmm.
It has a bearing on test results. Any flaw in any of these 150 steps, your report is going to be wrong, right? So these
Absolutely.
are these are structural issues, right?
Hmm.
Second thing is, they tell you something is wrong, they don't tell you why it is wrong, right? For instance, if your HB1AC is relatively high, right? Is it because of sugar consumption? It is because of ultra processed foods. It is
Hmm.
because of oxidative stress. It is because of vitamin D deficiency. It is because of magnesium deficiency, right? Or it is because of certain amino acids which impair insulin signaling, right? So there can be multiple reasons, right? But
Absolutely.
but your blood works will not tell you why. Again, the question why, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and as you rightly pointed out, so there is range is so high that even if it's normal, it will be abnormal, right? Right.
Right.
So these are you know these are the things why the interventions,
Hmm.
be it diet interventions, supplements, prebiotics, probiotics, or whatever interventions your new age startups are giving, right? It is based on the blood works, which again are a question mark in terms of the accuracy and precision, right?
Correct.
It may not be right. So it, again, it is similar to guesswork, right?
Hmm.
For instance,
Hmm.
there are certain questions we should ask, right? So if you have, let's assume, uh, if you have an low satiety, and you have, your blood sugars fluctuating every now and then if you go to some of these companies, they'll say start eating brown rice, right? Because brown rice is high in fiber resistant starch. These resistant starch are actually metabolized by your microbes and converted into short chain fatty acids,
Ah,
which actually strengthens your gut lining, which improves your satiety, and which helps you regulate your blood sugar level, right? But again, each food, right, it is very important here, each food has multiple molecules, compounds, right?
right.
How these molecules are processed and metabolized by your microbiome determines whether the food is good or bad, right? For instance,
Absolutely.
brown rice would have fiber, it also has ammonia, right? so
Correct.
so right? So essentially, if you have certain microbes which can ferment these ammonia in this probably,
Hmm.
to and lead to ammonia gas production, it can lead to digestive issues, right?
Absolutely.
So essentially, your startups, or people who are working on blood works will not be able to answer these questions.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you have magnesium deficiency, they will start eating, these seeds, nuts and seeds, sunflower seeds, or pumpkin seeds, right? But
Pumpkin
again,
seeds, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, something, all the
and
stuff. Yeah.
again, specifically pumpkin seeds are really high in, it is histamine liberators, right? So
Hmm.
essentially, if you have an histamine intolerance, it can lead to hives, headache, migraine, and a lot of other issues, right? So
Correct.
essentially, these standard interventions or semi-standard interventions are not going to work for you, right? So these are the questions you should ask, when you are going for these side of solutions, because all these solutions are based on blood work or even CGM, right? CGM tracks your blood work every now and then, right? So essentially, if I'm having a meal, I'm not going to have rice separately or dal separately to check my blood sugar level, right? So
Correct.
it gives you the again,
Combined kind of a thing.
combined. That is first thing. Second thing, it doesn't tell you, you know which specific molecule in food is causing that bad thing, right? It is telling you, okay, if you are eating, let's assume you are eating wheat or
Ah,
ragi, right?
hmm.
And it's fluctuating your blood sugar level, probably, what specific molecule in that food is causing, because every food would have thousands of molecules, right?
Correct.
Second is, if you for instance, if someone has, stress. So they will say, okay, you have high cortisol. Start taking ashwagandha. Again, ashwagandha is an issue because ashwagandha is high in oxalic acid, and it is a histamine liberator. Because histamine liberator is nothing but all the nightshade foods and vegetables, right? So ashwagandha comes from nightshade family, like nightshade family, like can be lady fingers, like bagan, and all these things are
Right.
right, eggplant, and all these things are nightshade, right? So essentially, they are very high in histamine. Similarly, probiotics are high in histamine. So if you're
Hmm.
taking a probiotic, for instance, if you have digestive issues, like if you take a probiotic like lactobacillus acidophilus, right? So essentially, if you're taking this probiotic but you have a high histamine production, probably that can backfire, right? So
Right.
so the point is, CGM also would not be able to address all your issues at one point in time. They work in isolation. So you need to understand how each molecule in every food impacts multiple biological functions inside your body. Right? Food is medicine. So nature is very smart. It has already put all the medicine in the food. We don't need to take medicine from outside. Only thing we need to understand which food is right for our biology. So that is something which we really need to answer it, correctly.
Correct. So, Sushant, like the way the thorough knowledge you have, and I think when we started our discussion, we you were mentioning about that healthcare professionals being not educated in the terms of nutrition and a more of a holistic view.
Hmm.
Being a educationist myself, I'm a passionate educator. So, in this context, I will just offshoot two questions which is running in my mind. Uh,
Sure, sure.
so So today, if so for example, today if what I see you like, when you give us so much of information, nobody will believe that you are not formally trained in
Mm,
this particular area.
mm,
Same way, if today we need to really bring some change, we really need to educate the healthcare providers, and
mm.
particularly the aspiring people, the new generation. They need to understand. And if suppose today, if any student or any aspirant from the medical fraternity or dental fraternity, they aspire to make a career in this industry, particularly the things that you were talking about. So what do you think are the specific skills that they should acquire, apart from the obviously the field knowledge in the domain knowledge? So apart from that, what skills would be really important that they should acquire, so that they can get into this kind of an industry, take up as a career, and they can slowly change the scenario of the world in the benefit of the society? Yeah.
Okay, so probably I'll put it differently, right?
Okay.
So thing is, skills, obviously, what we need to understand is that first thing is we should start asking the right questions, right? So essentially, even if you're a scientist or you're a biotechnologist, or you are working something on the microbiome made oral skin, or genetics or whatever it is, right? So
Hmm.
probably you should first think from a customer perspective, right? So a lot of people are suffering from diseases, they have issues. And how do I think differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, if I think the same way, thousands of people working in this industry are thinking, probably I'm not going to solve this problem, right?
Right.
So you understand that if I have to solve a problem directly or indirectly, probably
Mm.
if I'm a researcher, probably I want to do a research where I can help, biologists or doctors or healthcare professionals come out with the right set of, indicators or molecular mechanisms which can actually
Mm.
decode, what is going on inside our body or what is causing us trouble, right? So
Mm.
essentially we need to understand, ask the right questions here. It is not about, okay, let's do this research and let's do it. So probably, first thing can be, how can I see this thing differently, right? If suppose if I'm not from this industry, right, or I don't come from that background, right?
Mm.
So how would I see this problem?
Correct.
Would I see the problem differently, right?
Mm.
Or would I see this similarly, right? So essentially, uh, it's also to see from a perspective that how do I make an impact, right?
Yeah.
So the word is impact, right? So skills have to be, you should have a transferable skills. For instance, today is working, you are working in genomics, right? Maybe microbiome. Tomorrow you get into, cell therapy, or day after
Correct.
you get into genetics, right? So
Mm.
essentially, you should see that whatever skills I have, whether it can be transferable from one sector to other, or one
And the
company to other, right?
correct.
So,
Correct.
science, learning science is a very, great thing to
Mhm.
build our basics about, our industry, or our, the entire ecosystem around it, right? But we should look it very differently, because even nowadays technology is coming. So someone will say, okay, you are a biotechnologist, so probably why don't you do a course in an artificial intelligence or machine learning, and probably, you acquire that skill. So again, technologies are, you know uh, changing every day, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
essentially, you should be able to acquire skills which can be used, right? For instance, if you want to apply artificial intelligence, you should be able to evaluate a problem. Okay, this is the problem. Okay,
Mm.
how do I actually, can I apply a particular technology to actually solve this problem? Yeah,
Mm.
right.
Mm.
So
Correct.
similarly, in our sector only, right? What if, so essentially, what if, these are the question I ask, right? So I know people are suffering from this disease. What if I can know what is happening inside my body, right? What
Right.
molecule, what peptides and enzymes are being released, how our
Mm.
genes are being expressed, right? How can I know about them? Do we have some tool, right? So
Right.
essentially, these are the asking the right questions, right?
Ah.
So yeah.
Is there any scope, if anybody wants to just have a more hang of it in a closer way, is there any scope at your company to, get into internships, whether it is online or maybe offline? So, is there any scope for internships at your company?
Yeah, so I believe that I'm always looking for younger people to join because
Mm-hmm.
they have a fresh mind. They will see a problem in a very different perspective,
True.
right? Right. Not like if I hire someone with 15, 20 years experience, probably they will see the problem in the same way, right?
Right.
So obviously we have a lot of positions opening up in terms of on the research side, probably we want to get into oral microbiome, right? Probably we'll be working with you also on the oral microbiome part. We want to get into human genes expression part, right? Uh,
Right.
Even antibiotic
Res-
resistant, probably we can do research on that. We can build some sort of product around it, or maybe using analyzing poop of different people to come out with some sort of vaccines, right? So there are a lot of things which can be done, right? So essentially we are always open to have good minds coming and working with us, probably helping us help others, help people. Yeah.
Right. I think that kind of interaction, this kind of internship platform will also excite the young minds. And maybe what you were saying, that they should ask the right question. Maybe through these kind of efforts, they will also be able to ask the right question, because that also I think needs a
Yeah.
training, because from whatever field we come, we have a formal training into it, and we become little narrow in our insights rather
I'll
than
give
making
you,
it wider.
I'll give you a
Yeah.
very, very interesting example, right? So I have seen of late a lot of microbiome companies, some of the microbiome companies in India and DNA testing companies are doing a lot of advertisements, right?
Correct.
Right? To sell their products, to sell their tests, right? So the point here is that you have to see that at least 75% of the people still don't understand the genetic part, the genes part, how our body works, right? By doing some advertisements, you are not going to actually win over customers, because you are not empowering them to actually okay, how this test is going to help me. You will say I will decode all these genes and all these genetic expression and blah blah blah, right? But point is they don't understand how it is. So the problem is, if I decode this, what next, right?
Ah,
how, how it is going to help me, right? So
correct.
essentially, from this perspective also, the people who are working in this microbiology field or microbiome or genetic test, so probably they should look at okay, look at differently. What if I start educating people, right?
Mm.
What I start doing some sort of webinars or shows, or maybe going at very down level, going to different cities and working
Talking.
with some sort of doctors and educating people, so you see from a different perspective, right? So even sales people who sell these products
Mm.
and tests, probably they should look at, okay, I am just pushing my product, right?
Right.
By a number of distribution channels or by a number of collaborations. What if I can educate people, right?
Correct.
Train,
That is very
probably.
important.
Yeah.
That is very
Without,
important.
if you do that and without any expectation, okay, I'm doing a training session today, I should have 5 customers, 10 customers, right? So just start series of education, build your own a brand per se, so that people can come to you, right? So because for me it is, I have been educating for last 3 years, and that's how people come to me. It's always pull. It's always pull. We don't market our product, we don't sell our product, right?
Mm. Mm. So, in this context, like you rightly came up with a very interesting point here, which I was thinking I'll ask this question later point of time, but I think it's very relevant here, as you brought the point of different companies who are coming up and who are, thriving with a lot of marketing. So, in India, it has become a boom to be. I mean, what I see, and also even with gut microbiome or studying microbiome, many are offering many type of gut microbiome tests. I guess that how is your uh, tests? I mean, how GenFitletics is unique and different from all these existing players.
Okay. So again here, the thing is, see, microbiome testing, leaf testing, microbiome as a concept or as a subject,
Hmm.
99% of the people don't know.
Don't know. Yes, yes.
Right? Right? So
Absolutely.
essentially, first thing is before telling we are selling this test, first thing is start educating people what is microbiome, why microbiome is important, right?
Correct. Correct.
Why should you should understand your microbiome, right? So
Hmm.
again, you will say, oh, I use NGS, I do 16 sRNA, I use whole genome, I use blah blah blah, right? So nobody is going to understand this, right? So that's why we don't call ourselves a testing company, right?
Okay.
So first thing is that, again, there are different ways of testing. So what you
Hmm.
learn from a microbiome testing, right? So most of the, and I'm being very vocal and blunt, probably it may hurt people, it may not like, a lot of people may not like it, right? But 95% of the microbiome companies are business to business companies. It means they are doing mostly getting into clinical studies and trials, right?
Okay.
Working with education institutions and universities and even
Hmm.
healthcare institutions, right? For building molecular signatures and disease signatures, and finding out why a particular disease is happening, why a particular condition is happening, how a particular bacteria is overgrowing, undergrowing, doing a lot of research, which is again a very good thing. But the point here is, so most of these companies use a technology which you and me would understand, the 16s rRNA, which is basically sequencing the DNA of the bacteria, right? So
Correct.
essentially, you can learn which bacteria are there, what is their alpha and beta diversity, right? Again, alpha beta diversity means how much of different species or category of bacteria we have, and what is the abundance of each species in bacteria. So that's how we
Correct.
define alpha and beta diversity, right? So most of these companies generally do this, and then probably they say, okay, I have some sort of I don't have a supply constraint, I have a lot of capacity to do a lot of tests, so let customers come, patients come, I can do testing for them as well, right? And
Hmm.
then they will sequence the DNA of the bacteria. Again, that bacteria constitute around 85 to 88% of the total species stack inside our gut. Mostly people do gut testing, right? So again, these, they will decode the DNA, they will tell you abundance and diversity, right? They
Hmm.
don't tell the what they are doing, right? What they are functioning. For instance, right, let me take an example. Commensal bacteria like E. coli, right? Again, E. coli is, if it overgrows, it can do bad things. It can lead to production of TMA, or it can lead to LPS, which can lead to cardiovascular diseases and a lot of other autoimmune issues. But it also provides you vitamin B12. It is one of those bacteria among a group of bacteria that eats a lot of chicken and all this, and convert vitamin B12
Correct.
into so they give you vitamin B12 also, right? So essentially, by decoding the abundance and diversity, you don't know whether that bacteria is doing good or bad for you, right? So essentially, they will tell you, okay, this is, I have this bacteria, this is high, this is low, and then they give you some sort of health nutrition interventions based on
Yeah.
the necessity, right? So these are good tests from the wellness perspective. Okay, I want to know whether I have any microbiome which by trade producing microbiome, probably, which can actually help me build my muscles, or keep my health, and blah blah blah, right? So it's fine. And 99% of the tests are like that. They only
Hmm.
decode bacteria, that to diversity alpha beta, right? And then they give you some food recommendations, right? So this is first thing, right? So let's see two ends of spectrum, right? One is a basic 16s RNA technology where we decode only bacteria.
Hmm.
Second is the whole genome sequencing, which we say sequencing whole genome,
Correct.
which involve your bacteria, your viruses, your fungi, your yeast, your protozoa, your archaea, everything, right?
Hmm.
So so a lot of people who don't understand this is that bacteria such as archaea are methane eating or methionine consuming bacteria. So again, methane is one of the amino acids, so we are told to eat a lot of protein because they help us build muscles, help improve satiety, repair, and which is correct, right? So So it is not wrong that amino acids are required for our body's functioning. But the thing is, if you're eating excess, right? Or
Yes,
so thing is, these archaea start overgrowing. They start eating and they start overgrowing, right? and
that is the
and
problem.
and it leads to slow food motility, because in most of the cases what they do is they start moving from large intestine to small intestine, what we call as small intestine bacterial overgrowth, right?
Okay.
Because of this bloating, your food motility slows down, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the food is, just a visualized thing that your food is floating around your small intestine. Then now, for archaea, it is a feast. It is like going to a marriage, right? So they'll go and start eating these foods, and this will lead to small intestine bacterial overgrowth, right? So you will have further abdominal pain and all these things, right? So essentially, if you are not decoding, you're probably not able to understand why I'm having acid
Mm-hmm.
reflux, or bloating or constipation. Similarly, candida are those bugs which love iron, which love sugar, right? So if you are craving too much on sugar, probably you are eating a lot of sugar, which is feeding candida, and candida is overgrowing. And these candida can lead to histamine, it can lead to type 2 diabetes, it can lead to autoimmune disorders, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not decoding them, probably you are not giving complete picture of your health, right?
Correct.
Again- So again, third thing is the activities, what they are doing, right? As I mentioned about E. coli, so we need to decode the function and activity. Who are there? Who are active? What they are doing? These are the three questions we should ask, right? So most of us will answer only who are they, right? How much are they, right?
Mm.
How they so in terms of who are active, so simple example in layman language, probably you and me are friends. I you live in the same place. I went out of country to study, and I came back, started working in Mumbai. You're working in Chennai, right? So you're finding me in Chennai. I'm not in Chennai. I'm active in Mumbai, right? So essentially, I'm not active in Chennai, right? So probably these tests will not decode where I'm active, right? Again,
Correct.
what I'm doing in Mumbai, am I working in a finance company? I'm working in a manufacturing company. I'm working with a fintech company. I'm working with an biotechnology company, or I'm in sales and marketing or strategy or finance. So what I'm doing, all these things, these a lot of these 16s RNA doesn't decode, right? So essentially, we need to answers when we are going for a microbiome testing. We should answer, okay, which bacteria, which microbes, which fungi, which viruses, yeast, archaea are there, who are active, what they are doing, what they are producing, right? What they're producing means, if you're eating food, when they're fermenting the food, what they are releasing inside your body. Are they
Mm.
releasing vitamins, minerals, or they're releasing bad things like methane and ammonia, and or maybe impacting your hormone levels, elevating your cortisol, or reducing your cortisol, or impacting your estrogen levels in case of females, impacting your thyroid. So all these interactions, molecular interactions, we need to decode to actually understand what is happening. And that's why what we are doing is exactly unique, is we decode every single activity of every single microbes, what they are doing, how they are, what they are producing, right? So I can, when we sequence your microbiome, we study it. So probably I'll explain what we do, but in terms of, I can tell you what is your bitrate production, I can tell you what is your methane gas production, I can tell you what is your ammonia production, what is your antioxidant production, and number of 28 such biological pathways course, right? So probably we can it, in simple words, we can predict, by looking at your microbiome, okay, if spinach is going to give you iron, vitamin D, or it is going to give you oxalate, which is going to create kidney stones, right? So we can predict if food is going to be nutrient for you before you eat it, right? So essentially, that's how. So what we do is, when we sequence your microbiome, we collect your biological data. We
Correct.
That is around, what, 120 million data points, right? We analyze them, we convert them into various biological functions, various biological pathways. So we can tell you, analyze your microbial functions at molecular level, right? uh, what is, so by analyzing, we can tell you what is making you develop a particular symptom. So probably if you have high blood pressure or hypertension, or your blood sugar is fluctuating, or headache, right? So we can tell you what specific microbes or activity is causing it, right?
Okay.
And then what you should eat in what quantity, what you should minimize in what quantity, what you should avoid, what you should moderate, what specific supplement in what quantity, what specific prebiotic, probiotic in what quantity you need at that point in time to balance out your functions. right? And
Fantastic.
as you start eating, your microbiome composition changes, right? So your dietary recommendation also changes. So a food which is healthy for you right now may not be healthy after 3 months, right?
Correct.
Right. So again, it has to be very dynamic, right? And again, what
Yes.
we do is we have a 4 month subscription plan. Suppose if you sign up, you give your biological sample, we sequence, we collect a lot of biological data, right? We have an in-house algorithm, we run that biological data, right?
Okay.
We analyze your functions, convert them into various pathways or various scores, which gives you unique health insights. Then we map these with various molecules in foods, not foods but molecules, as I mentioned. Food has various molecules. So how this, so probably if I'm going to give you methionine, right? And if your
Mm-hmm.
methane concentration is very high, it is going to
Mm-hmm.
trigger bloating, right? So constipation, bloating, right? So essentially, in such case, I would keep food which are high in methionine in minimized list, right? Right now,
Okay.
if I don't feed
More
your
focused and more precision, more
yeah,
precise,
yeah,
rather than overview. It is
yeah,
like kind of
it's like
pinpoint. Uh,
very precise for your biology, right?
yes.
So when so again, within these 4 months, we change your nutrition 3 times. So we give you
Oh,
nutrition for 1 month. Again, we take a
you will
stock of
check.
your symptoms. Again, we
Okay.
change. Again, we take a stock of symptoms. Again, we change. Right. So after 4 months, if you want, you can go for a retest and you can compare your scores. Right. How well
Fantastic.
your diet has worked. Right. So we
I think
have
this is very
yeah.
nice because generally what happens is like test, you get a recommendation, that's all. But I think this follow up kind of thing, and to revisit again and again to really understand and pinpoint the problem and the solutions that is provided is actually working or not, to find out, that is also a very important thing. So I think this is very unique what which sounded to me what you are offering.
Another point, it is entirely tech, right? There is no human intervention required, right? So you give your data, we
Correct.
collect your data, we analyze your data, we give you recommendations, right? So
Hmm.
it is entirely scientific. There's no human. So the the possibility of human error is not there. First thing, right? And so as we track your symptoms, we can find out, okay, whether you are even following it or not, right?
Correct. You can
Right?
understand from the retest also that whether it is being correctly
Yeah.
done or
So
not.
so again, we need to understand what food we should eat, why we should
Yeah.
eat this, right? And additionally, what we can do is we can give you an additional report, right?
Mm.
Which is not standard, but at an additional price we can give that if customer wants, which explains why this score in detail, right? Why this food is avoided, why this food is not avoided, why this food is in superfood, why this is minimized list, right? So
Mm.
that if you want to show this to a doctor, probably, so if someone suppose have suboptimal bile acid metabolism, right? So why you have, right? What is the mechanics behind it? Or if you have low, I'm eating a lot of strawberry, I'm taking a lot of green tea, but my
Mm.
antioxidant production is low, right? So why? Because I don't have the right kind of bugs to actually extract the antioxidants from the food, and we are not getting, our body is not getting that food,
Right.
that nutrients, right? So essentially we can give you that detail inside, so which fill in this gap of your unique biology, which you can
Correct.
show to the doctor, so probably doctor can bring more precision into your diagnosis and treatment, right? So
Yeah,
we
this
we
will
can,
really help
we
the
can do this
person.
doctor. Yeah,
Yeah, this will really help the healthcare professional also to
yeah,
again make more customized, and what we are heading towards, like everybody talks about, and like the precision medicine that we are talking about. I think this is a very good helping step to the healthcare professional, and absolutely also to the person who, I mean, to the patient who is on the other side of the desk. So I think it's fantastic. And I think it's a very interesting conversation which is going on, and I think we are talking almost an hour, but it's just that it is so interesting that we are just going with the flow. And I think we need a lot of conversations. And as you said, also you mentioned that it is very important to educate people, both ways, I mean, healthcare professionals as well as the normal people, because it is the data or the sample that they will, if they understand that what is what, and what has to be done and what not, then I think this would be a real game changer. I think so. So just to wind up our conversation, I would. And it was very insightful, Sushant. There's so much of things that at least I learned a lot today. So, what is just bringing to my to you my last question is that what is your message to current health tech startups and entrepreneurs in general, like, or maybe who are aspiring to bring up startups in this area maybe. So what, because your message will really help them to actually open their minds and go in the right path.
So I'll probably say something for entrepreneurs in general. It can be health tech, it can be fintech, it can be agriculture,
Anything.
anything. So so essentially, first thing is what trend I have seen. So by the way, for last we have bootstrapped for last 4 years, so we have not raised any money. We are running show on the base of the customer money, our revenue, and everything, right? So essentially, first thing is we should not first question is why we want to start something, right? What is the reason? Ask why I want to build this business, right?
Correct.
So is it because everyone is building? Is it because I can raise money, or I really want to solve this problem, right? Probably I have faced it, my friend has faced it, someone in my family has faced it, or I generally have seen people, suffering from this, and I think I can use my skills and expertise to actually bring a solution which can solve this, right? So that is the first thing we should look at. Second thing is, if you can, probably if you're starting this, have in mind that you should devote at least 10 years to this business if you really want to solve this problem, right? uh, uh, do not depend on investors money to run your business. It may or may not come, right? So
Right.
build your own brand, right? So people should know you, so you can build your brand. Probably, we have a lot of options. LinkedIn is one, Twitter is another, Instagram. So you can actually start building your brand in terms of educating people. Don't expect anything in return, so that people know you by your name. Okay, I have this problem, I have to look for a, suppose, personal loan, which probably, I should talk to this guy. He knows a lot, he can give me a better quote, he can give me a better price, right? Probably.
Right.
Or if I'm looking for an agricultural solution, probably I should stick talk to this person, right? So essentially focus on building your brand, right? So that's a way organically you can generate a lot of leads, a lot of customers. Do not focus too much on spending money on advertisements, right? Specifically for a direct to customer startups, you know advertisement would help, but probably, starting point should always be that people should know you, right? Know your, so it can be content, it can be, webinars, doing some sort of educational stuff, so the point is here that, do not always depend on investors money, and uh, always focus on customers, right? Always do not. And second thing is, if you're launching a product, probably do not wait. Okay, first I'll make my product and then I will, I will launch. So probably launch, take feedback from customer, keep on changing. That's how we build it, right? So when we started building this, we never had this, the kind of product we have built now. So it took us 3 years, right, for this to build, right? So essentially, we had our own gaps. Based on customers' feedback, we have changed these gaps, right?
Right.
We have from a manual model, we have come to entirely tech model. So essentially, try to learn a lot of things, skills. Even if it's tech, probably you can learn to code, you can learn to build your own platform. Because I never had a biotech background, but I somehow have built a business in biotech, right? So which was, also never thought that I will do something like this, so so essentially, just be frugal, do not spend too much. Have a very short team, augment your business with technology, and just be yourself. Don't be too much dependent on investors. That's what I'm trying to tell you, because even if you raise a lot of money, in 3 years you will be employing your own company, right?
Right.
So it's
Right.
it's better you focus on building your brand, focus on acquiring customers, and very simple thing. This is what I do. Ask yourself every day in front of mirror: have I done something good today? right? You should be able to face yourself, right? So that's what I do every day. So yeah.
Thank you, Srishant. It was very inspiring. Talking to you was very insightful, and I think whoever has been sticking us with us in this live session, or people who will be watching this after in a recorded version, also, I think the type of knowledge we gathered today. I think this is something which will open everybody's mind, or at least people will start thinking about what exactly is going on and what kind of things we should actually acquire knowledge on. So
Mm.
it was fantastic, and thank you so much for this
Thank you.
extended time.
Mm.
And I hope that we will meet in future, and
Sure,
we will learn more from you in the
sure,
coming days.
sure.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.